Welcome back to the Great American History class and week number 2 of distance learning. This will be Mr. Ripley's third fireside chat, and we're going to start out with a real quick COVID-19 update. Not trying to upset or make anybody panic or be overly concerned, but the U.S. Surgeon General has warned that for America, the upcoming weeks of the corona cases and deaths will be possibly our historic Pearl Harbor moment and our 9/11 moment. So continue to take precautionary measures and be safe as we move into these trying times. Now again, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt during the Great Depression and during World War II historically gave and delivered the fireside chat. So this is Mr. Ripley's third fireside chat, and today we are going to continue with some Native American Indian related sequences of events, and ultimately it is going to center around this man right up here on the big board. That is Chief Joseph, Nez Perce Indian leader chief, and they were living out in the Wallowa Valley of northeastern Oregon. His Indian given name was Himatoyalakit, and that means thunder rolling down the mountain. And so Chief Joseph was considered to be a highly respected Native American Indian chief out in the West, and ultimately the sequence of events are going to lead to one incredible storyline, albeit what I would consider one of the saddest stories in all of American history. That's just my personal opinion. So we've gone through some Indian related events. If you go back to the Trail of Tears, which basically stemmed from the Andrew Jackson presidential administration with the Indian Removal Act of 1830, removing Indians from the east side of the Mississippi River to the west side of the Mississippi River. And of course the Trail of Tears followed in that sequence of events, where the Cherokee Indians of northern Georgia primarily were forced to be removed to the Indian Territory in Oklahoma shortly after gold had been discovered on their land as well. So the treatment or mistreatment thereof of the Native American Indians is always considered one of the possible black eye moments in American history, and whatever your perspective may or may not be, it's certainly up for debate and discussion. So we took a look at the presidential Andrew Jackson Indian Removal Act of 1830. We looked at the Trail of Tears. We took a look at the Dakota 38 and the situation of the Sioux Indians in the state of Minnesota, and the large mass execution hanging in Mankato, Minnesota, and Lincoln and the Sioux. And then, of course, we took a look most recently at Custer and the Battle of the Little Bighorn with the 7th Cavalry, which becomes the largest American military defeat to the Native American Indians at the Valley of the Little Bighorn River in southeastern Montana. So that was in 1876, easy way to remember that, 100 years after the Declaration of Independence. So the story of Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce Indians starts long before that. However, it is going to culminate to a pinnacle height in 1877, just the following year after the Battle of the Little Bighorn. So, long story short, Chief Joseph had a dad. Chief Joseph's dad was also Chief Joseph. Chief Joseph is Chief Joseph the Elder, and the Chief Joseph that you're looking at on the board is Chief Joseph the Younger. So Chief Joseph's dad, the older one, ultimately had signed a treaty with the American government, basically stating that the land in the Walla Walla Valley of northeastern Oregon, that would be right here if you take a look at the big board, they were living here in the northeastern part of Oregon called the Walla Walla Valley because of the Walla Walla Mountains. Right here, very beautiful land by all accounts. And ultimately, again, Chief Joseph the Elder, who at that time was the leader of this particular Nez Perce Indian tribe, ultimately had signed that agreement with the American government that this land would forever be Nez Perce Indian land. However, Chief Joseph the Elder would die, I believe it was around 1871, and Chief Joseph the Younger would take over as the particular Indian chief of this tribe of Nez Perce Indians. Well, in 1877, the American government would order the Nez Perce Indians of Chief Joseph to move and to live and to be right here on this Nez Perce Indian reservation in what is the present-day state of Idaho. So Chief Joseph, who had promised his father before his death that he would look out and take care of his people in the Indian tribe, and he had also promised his dad that he would never give up the Nez Perce Indian land of the Walla Walla Valley of northeastern Oregon. He faced a dilemma situation as to what to do at this time when the American government, who he had a very good relationship with up until that point, ultimately he had to decide what to do. And although he was against going to the reservation in Idaho, ultimately that is what he was going to do in the final analysis. However, some things are going to happen. There's going to be a sequence of events that happen, and ultimately it's going to lead to the Nez Perce Indians going on a flee and fight. They are going to end up going on a flee and flight expedition that is going to take them over about 1,500 miles. So if you take a look at this Nez Perce Indian trail map, again right here is Chief Joseph's Nez Perce Indians in the Walla Walla Valley. So if you look on the big board again, this is the area we're talking about. Chief Joseph's country right here, and ultimately the reservation that they are ordered by the American government right here in the present-day state of Idaho. They're going to be right here at White Bird Canyon in Idaho, and there's going to be a battle skirmish that breaks out there with the Nez Perce Indians and the American military. And ultimately the Nez Perce Indians are successful in winning the battle here at White Bird Canyon. And ultimately they're going to cross and recross the Salmon River, and that is going to lead them on an expedition. They're going to come across what's called the Low Pass, and they're going to go through the Bitterroot mountain range, which is basically along the border of Idaho and Montana. And then they're going to swing south, and there's going to be one of the bigger battles along the way, and that's going to be the Battle of the Big Hole right here in Montana. And then they're going to continue their way, and ultimately this right here is a location you might be familiar with, Yellowstone National Park. And they're going to make their way through what we know today as Yellowstone National Park. And if you ever go to Yellowstone National Park, you can find a designated area that pays tribute to where Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce Indians made camp in Yellowstone National Park. I stood right there about 5 years ago, and it is, again, walking in the footsteps of history. So, Yellowstone National Park, the Nez Perce Indians of Chief Joseph camped there. Then they're going to be, their ultimate objective is to make their way to Canada and actually meet up with Sitting Bull. That would be Chief Sitting Bull from, again, the battle at the Little Bighorn, because after the battle of Little Bighorn, Sitting Bull took a large number of Indians to Canada, where they were for about 5 years. So they keep making their way, and again, the American Army is in pursuit of them, and they're making their way up the middle part of Montana, and ultimately they make their way to about within 40 miles of the Canadian border, and the American military is going to catch up with them, and Chief Joseph will surrender a large number of the Nez Perce Indians. They had a group including men, women, and children of about 700 Nez Perce Indians when they left the Walla Walla Valley of northeastern Oregon. And they're going to surrender here at Bear Paw Mountain in the northern central part of Montana. And they had made about 1,500 miles on the journey of fleeing and along with fighting the American military and different cavalry units. And when Chief Joseph surrenders, about 250 Nez Perce Indians are going to make their escape and are going to make their way to Canada and meet up with Sitting Bull. So when Chief Joseph makes the surrender, not all Nez Perce Indians will be surrendered. There will be about 250, it's estimated, that will make their way from Bear Paw Mountain all the way to Canada, where they do meet up with Sitting Bull. So this is an incredible sequence of events. Ultimately, one of the sad stories in all of American history, in just my humble opinion. And again, the reason it does occur is, again, it's basically 1 year after Custer's last stand in the Battle of the Little Bighorn. The American military and the American government may be a little embarrassed by that military defeat to the Native American Indians, Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. And maybe they wanted a little revenge and payback for what had happened there in southeastern Montana. So the reason it happens again is gold was discovered in the Walla Walla Valley, and more white settlers came in to the Walla Walla Valley, and eventually the American government and Americans wanted that land, and they wanted the gold. So they ordered the Nez Perce Indians of Chief Joseph off of the land to a reservation in Idaho, and that leads to the sequence of events of the flee and fight mission. Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce Indians, eventually, their objective is to make it to Canada and to meet up with Sitting Bull and the Indians with him. So, you are going to have the opportunity to watch the video movie entitled "I Will Fight No More Forever." This here in my hand is a video recording. This is a VHS VCR tape. Some of you may have seen some of these at one time or another. But this is actually a video recording tape that my dad gave to me. And ultimately, he was a junior high, middle school social studies teacher. And when he closed up shop and retired, he gave me some of his stuff. And one of the things that he gave me was "I Will Fight No More Forever," his recording of Chief Joseph and the Nez Perce Indians. It came out on TV in 1975. 1975, what's that, 45? About 45 years ago. So, I used to show this in class, actually, with this tape right here on something that's called a VCR, right here. And you would plug this in, and you would put the tape into the VCR like this, and it would be hooked up to the TV, and you would get the playing of the video movie. So some of you may have seen these VCRs like this right here. Now, I was using VCRs all the way up until the remodeling of the new Jordan Middle School, which is now, what, about 5 years. So VCRs were first coming into play in about the late 1970s, very popular through the 1980s and 90s. Then, of course, we came up with something called the DVD, which you might have heard of. The DVDs came very popular in the latter part of the 1990s and in through the 2000s and beyond. And then, of course, then we got the DVR, digital video recording, which we have on this TV system right up here. And then, of course, we got internet live streaming, digital live streaming as well. So just a little bit on the history of technology and video. So I hope that you've enjoyed this fireside chat of Mr. Ripley's. Again, do not panic out there. COVID-19, be safe. Practice simple and common sense practices. And don't forget to have a Coke and a smile.